King Arthur was a British leader in the late 5th and early 6th centuries AD. So before talking about King Arthur, we need to give context and background information about his time period, better known as the Middle Ages. In Europe, the Middle Ages lasted from the 5th to the 15th century. It began with the fall of the Western Roman Empire. The population started to decline during the beginning of the Middle Ages, followed by invasion and a large amount of movement of people. This began the dark time of Europe, and many people started turning unhappy. Since Christianity had spread by this time, many people had faith and practiced it. This sense of morale created a better environment for people. The church was the center of many people's lives. During the High Middle Ages, which began after about 1000, the population of Europe started to increase. This was because of agricultural and trade flourishing. Also, the crop yields increased due to the warm climate that hit Europe. Feudalism had been formed and was used in the lives of many. People from all statuses practiced it. Feudalism was an effective system used that referred to social order. The system was used for hundreds of years. It revolved around the wants of land, military service, and labor. Transactions would rotate between the lords, the nobles, and the peasants. The nobles, or knights, would get land from the lords, and in return, the nobles would give the lords military services. The lords would allow the peasants to live on their land in exchange for labor and shares of the produce that they would make. During all this time, too, Christianity was being faithfully practiced. This sets the image for the story of King Arthur.
He had knights of the Round Table. He had a kingdom named Camelot. And the man we are talking about today is Sir King Arthur. The epic of King Arthur and his Knights of the Round Table is a tale of passion, noble deeds, and chivalry. It's also a tale of death and suffering and war destruction. Above all its tragedy, Arthur was the firstborn son of King Uther Pendragon and heir to the throne in Cornwall, southern England. Little is known about the possible myth who inspired the story of King Arthur. As told, he was a heroic monarch who has been a popular mythological and literary character for some time. However, when Arthur was born, these were very troubled times, and Merlin, a wise magician, advised that the baby Arthur should be raised in a secret place and that none should know his identity. Arthur's father did not survive, and the people of England were left without a king. So, they looked up to Merlin for help at the time being. A king had to be found to restore order. Merlin used his magic powers, and he planned to devise the country and bring peace to the people. So Merlin used his magic to set a sword in the stone. Written on the sword in letters of gold were these words: "Whoso pulleth out the sword of this stone is the right wise born king of all England." Of course, all the contenders for the throne took their turn at trying to draw the sword, but none could succeed. But in the crowd was the destined king of England, Arthur. Unfortunately, as peace settled over the country, things turned sour within the court of Camelot, and civil war broke out.
King Arthur died at the Battle of Camelot in 537 AD. A knight of the Round Table, Mordred, dedicated his life to killing King Arthur. Working with one of Sir Gawain's brothers, Mordred exposed the affair between Sir Lancelot and his woman, Guinevere, which ultimately led to a war between Arthur and Lancelot. When Arthur was off waging battles and wars, Mordred told everyone in Camelot that Arthur was actually dead. He then tried to assume the throne and get into bed with Guinevere, who is technically his stepmother. In some versions of the story, he was actually successful in marrying Guinevere, because apparently people back then had a serious incest fetish. Of course, Arthur wasn't dead, and he ends up fighting his treacherous son. Arthur impales Mordred with a spear, and Mordred pushed the spear deeper into his own body, just so he could strike a mortal wound to Arthur. Arthur survives the battle, but dies a short time later. Some say he died right there, and some say his wounds healed and he is waiting to be reincarnated.